So is the house of Parfums de Marly overhyped, overrated? Are their scents basic? Are they basically a clone house, or are they innovative and worthy of a lot of the attention that they receive? I'm going to go over that in this video. I'm not an expert. I'm not Captain Perfumery. I didn't go to perfume college. What I will say is I'm going to give you guys an honest take. I'm fully aware of Federal Trade Commission compliance, and I'm going to let you guys know bluntly that I am not sponsored, affiliated. I have zero relationship with Parfums de Marly at all, ever. I'm going to just give you my pure honest take. And while I'm not a perfume expert, I do feel like I have a relatively decent amount of experience. I've explored more artistic brands like Orto Parisi, Amouage, Zoologist, and I've also explored Parfums de Marly and almost everything in between those. My perspective on this question, it's a very back and forth kind of heated debate that seems like it will just go on forever, but my perspective is a bit more balanced. I'm not going to take a really strong stance because I've been on both sides of the fence. I thought Parfums de Marly was very underwhelming and not really deserving of hype at all. And I've also thought Parfums de Marly is very worthy of the hype and they're a groundbreaking brand, basically. Having been on both sides of the fence, I found myself somewhere closer to the middle. So I'll start off with the perspective I had that was anti-Parfums de Marly. Basically, when I was against Parfums de Marly, the biggest thing that I felt was that their designs were derivative and very safe, and they weren't really taking risks as a brand. Like, art is supposed to challenge and push the boundaries, and if you look at revolutionaries in art and music and anything, it was always somebody that went against the grain and did something different and ended up working out, but it created a whole new genre of art. And you'll see brands that are more artistically driven actually taking risk. Like, I'll show somebody a fragrance and I'll say this retails for like $360. And they'll be confused, but the reason that it's worth that much money and what I've learned with perspective is because of the design aspect. It's not the materials, it's not the atomizer, it's not the aroma chemicals, and it's not the perfume oil. That stuff's relatively cheap. It's really the design. Like, when you see a designer bag, the reason they're called designer bags is you're paying for the design, not the leather. You're paying for the artist to go in there and create something that's unique, but also has sensibility as a product. So that's what I feel like you're paying for, and there's going to be a lot of flops because a brand is supposed to take risk, and that's what you're paying them to do. Parfums de Marly, I felt like wasn't taking a lot of creative risk. I feel like it's almost like the perfumers had a really good creative idea, and then some boardroom got together and said, that's great, but add some vanilla to it, make it a bit safer. I don't know if that makes sense, but this is the perspective I had for a while. Another thing is just that the hype was so inflated, and it still is. It's almost like you'll see like literal teenagers on TikTok flexing their Parfums de Marly. It's become like a status symbol. And it's like, that's all you hear. Even when you go into a Nordstrom, like at least here in Texas, you'll see a big Parfums de Marly booth and then like very small niche booths. And they're just kind of pumped out, and influencers seem to have nothing negative to say about the brand or any of their products at all. And it's like all hype and they're the greatest thing ever. And yeah, it's just like literally that hype was so inflated that it's like, dude, is it really a niche brand, or is it just a status symbol at this point? Especially when you start discovering more brands like your Amouages and stuff, and you see how little recognition they receive and how little hype that they get. It feels unbalanced, and it feels tacky almost. The other thing that I felt was like a resentment because of their willingness to just directly copy certain fragrances, like Parfums de Marly. Percival's extremely similar to Abercrombie and Fitch Fierce. Darcy is very similar to Coco Mademoiselle, or you have like Godolphin, very similar to Tuscan Leather. Kind of writing them off as like, okay, so you're going to copy their design and then charge $360 for it and give us this whole story about how you were from 1760, even though the house was founded in 2009, according to their own website. So it kind of felt like, I don't know, a corny marketing tactic. Oh, they're all named after horses from 1760. And okay, so we're going to copy this design basically, maybe change it the slightest amount and charge $360 for it and pump it out and make this like a status symbol to have. It's like, All this just left me with a sour taste in my mouth, especially when you look at other brands that are taking risk, that aren't copying other brands, that aren't giving you some weird background story that may or may not be true, but in my opinion, it seems pretty suspicious. So when you look at that, it just feels like they were very focused on the marketing and creating things mass appealing. And I felt like they were prioritizing smelling good, which should be a goal with any fragrance, but I feel like they were prioritizing that over the art of creating something unique. Now here's me on the other end, and I'm gonna completely shift gears for a moment here because it's crazy how far I've been on both sides. Not all their work is derivative. In fact, a lot of their work is actually pretty unique. I'm not going to walk into a Sephora and smell anything that smells in the ballpark of Pegasus Exclusive or Carlisle. And actually, they do take creative risks. Some of their fragrances are very challenging. I've not liked everything from them. Callan is a very challenging fragrance. I straight up didn't like Galloway. I think Sedley is the only fragrance on this channel, one of the only ones that I rated a 1. Like, absolutely not. Heck, even Layton. Some people say it smells like straight up Vicks Vapor Rub and they can't stand it. That's not like crowd pleasing or not risk taking to do, is to jam a bunch of menthol in something. Oh, and then they took it a bit further and they said, let's not just have a super menthol vanilla, but let's throw animalic components in it with Layton Exclusive. These are like very risk taking fragrances. Pegasus, like let's do sweet almond and market it to men. So they're actually very risk-taking, and they get unfairly compared. That's one thing I've noticed. People say, oh, Pegasus smells like hypnotic poison. My wife and I smelled them side by side, and they literally don't at all.
It's not like it's totally, crazy to say that they're similar. But no, like, and I'm not trying to be funny or rude or nothing, but this is like, Pegasus is shiny magazine paper and hypnotic poison is Play-Doh. Totally different.
Another one that I've seen compared is Perseus smells like Terre d'Hermes. Like maybe on the opening for like 2-3 minutes, but in the dry down, dude, they smell completely different. So their work isn't all copies. Actually, very, very little of it is. And then while we're on that, why does Xerjoff get a pass? Like, Xerjoff makes so many copies, it's crazy. Like, way more than I found with Parfums de Marly as a house. Like, Naxos is clearly very, very similar to Pure Havane. 40 Knots is very similar to Ambre Nuit by Dior. Mephisto is very similar to Silver Mountain Water. And their sister company, Suspiro, made Vibrato, which is very similar to Bulgari Tiger. So it's like, why does Xerjoff get a pass? But Parfums de Marly, they copy 3 times and boom, they're automatically a clone house. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Anyways, got a bit sidetracked, but I'll keep going. As a side note here, I'm having a daughter in February and her name is actually going to be Delina. And it's not just because I love the fragrance. It's my favorite woman's fragrance of all time. But it's also because I like the name. But yeah, my daughter's going to be named after a perfume, and that perfume is Delina. So I brought Delina to work, and I was showing it to people thinking everybody was going to like it because it's the best woman scent. Literally out of like the 8 to 10 people that I showed it to saying I'm naming my daughter after this perfume and they had full incentive to like it, none of them liked it. And oddly enough, I had Ganymede with me. And I showed them that, and they all like Ganymede more pretty much. So it's like, I think that Parfums de Marly fragrances are actually more polarizing than I felt they were in the past. And then the critique that they're overpriced, okay, at retail. First off, who's paying retail? Second off, okay, so say they're $360 retail. I think that's what they are. What fragrance is worth $360? Like, for real, that's such an unfair bar to set for anyone. Like, anybody who says that, I'm just curious, like, what fragrance would you pay $360 for, period? Because me, I wouldn't pay $360 for any fragrance I've ever tried in my life. So it's kind of unfair to set the bar and say they're not worth more than any fragrance I've ever tried, in my opinion. And I think that, what they go for on discounters or on secondhand markets, I typically half of retail is what I've seen. Considering you get 125 milliliters, you get a solid metal cap, you get a decent atomizer, and their perfumes tend to have decent performance in my experience. I think that they provide a pretty good value, to be honest. I do think that their women's fragrances being so much more expensive than the men's, like being the same price basically, but you get 50 milliliters less. I don't like that. But as far as men's fragrances, I think you get a pretty good value with them. But still, all that being said, I still think Parfums de Marly is overhyped because of just how much people pump it up online, and you see all these people flashing their Parfums de Marly bottles. It honestly just tarnishes the brand. And it kind of is like, having explored other brands and other niche fragrances, like true artistic niche, it's like, man, I wish the other ones just got more attention, because people who just get hung up on Parfums de Marly and don't delve further and just wave it around as a status symbol and say it's the best because so-and-so influencer said it was, they're truly missing out on a lot of the beautiful aspects of perfumery, because true niche is actually pretty good smelling. I've only had a couple niche fragrances that I would say actually were trying to really not smell good. Almost all of them smell good, even the creatives, the super creative stuff. The difference is they're not derivative at all. It's like with Parfums de Marly and a lot of niche brands, you get, oh, it's a citrus, oh, it's a vanilla, but then you get something like Zoologist Squid, where it's like an ink, or you get something like Santal 33, where it's like a cucumber pickly fresh smell. Beach Hut Man with its herbal minty nature. Ganymede, which is just from another planet, like gritty, sandy, but ultimately sensible and really nice smelling with the almost mineralic leather. Jubilation 25 of blackberry incense. Megamare with like the smell of literally you're by the ocean. All these things smell good and most people are going to like it, and in the air you're not going to stink to people. It's not like body odor. I think the way that people critique Parfums de Marly for prioritizing mass appeal almost makes it seem like all the people who are into true niche want to smell like goat fur and mayonnaise, and that's not how it is. Like, true niche artistically done fragrances still have a priority of smelling good. I think they just prioritize the creative nature a bit more. So people who get hung up on Parfums de Marly being the best, they get preached to that, and what they see online is they believe it, that that's the best, there's no reason to delve further, are really missing out on the beautiful nature of true niche perfumery and the creative aspects of it, and people that are kind of pushing the boundaries and trying to find the next thing. I think Parfums de Marly, they fit the modern trend. I think they're creative and they do things unique and really well, and they are a niche brand, and I really love them, and I do think that they deserve credit. And I think they're great. I love my Leighton and Harrod. I feel like they have something for everyone. Like, usually people will walk away. They only have 18 fragrances. It's worth trying them and just taking away your 3, 4, whatever it is that you really enjoy and keeping those with you. But yeah, if you stay hung on Parfums de Marly, you're going to get bored. So then it's just about going to the next niche house. But really, I'll keep Leighton and Harrod with me forever. I love those fragrances. I feel like them as a brand, they're creative, but they also stay within the modern trends of perfumery. Like, if you look at how things have shifted throughout history, even in, for instance, with music, like in classical music, you had the Baroque period where it was like Bach and everybody was really fast on the whole, just the classical music was more fast, more aggressive, more different, and more unique. And then you had the Romantic period where it's like, okay, this is more relaxed and focused on being appealing. It's really just two different expressions of art. And I feel like that's what Parfums de Marly does really well. I call them the jazz club of fragrances, because art is kind of in this phase where it's meant to be dialed more in the background. Like, if you look at the music that was popular when I was growing up, things like the Eminem show is very raw, very multi-syllable, very loud. It was always music that you can go home and listen to the album on headphones by yourself and be entertained. And if you look at current music, it's really meant to be more played in the background of like gatherings or events or clubs or whatever it is. Even with the music not having words, mumble rap, for example, or like the focus being on the beat, or just not having things like Slipknot or all those types of metal bands being as popular as they were. All the music's more background, subtle. It's almost like we're in the Romantic period once again. And with fragrances, it's the same thing. Like, fragrances used to be loud, very creative, this, that, and the other. And now it's less about standing out. And it's more about having a fragrance where you can just show up and it's kind of subtle. It's not really making a statement. You know what I mean? It's more enhancing the experience for others than it is trying to be an experience in and of itself. So on my days off, I'll wear more creative fragrances, but when I'm going in groups of people, I'll wear my Parfums de Marly. And I feel like they're both artistic and they're both great and I love them both. It's just I experience them differently. I'll experience like an animalic oud more internally on my days off, just like I experience a speed rap whenever I put on my headphones at the gym or something more complex in music. But I enjoy Parfums de Marly when I'm around other people. It's more like experiencing the art externally. Like it's more about sharing that experience with others. It's the same way as if I'm at a fine dining restaurant and I don't necessarily want, Slipknot playing. I would be fine listening to romantic period classical. There's just a time and place for every form of art. I remember people would give me like a phone and say, pick a song. And I would always pick the most complex, independent rap song I could find. And it'd be in this big group of people. And it would just be so distracting. I realized that's not what anybody wanted. So Parfums de Marly is just, there's a time and place for it. And I love it for what it does. I also love them because they're a gateway niche brand. Like Leighton was my first full bottle purchase. And I don't know if I would have ever found niche if it wasn't for the hype behind them. So I am in a way grateful for the hype. It's not fair to say, oh, they pay influencers and that's the problem. They're aggressive in social media marketing. Influencers overhype everything, literally. Parfums de Marly are just popular fragrances. And the truth is, it's hard to be honest about a popular fragrance. It was hard for me to come out here and give Sedley a 1. It's hard because people say they want honest, respectful reviews, like reviews where you're thorough and you engage a discussion, the same way they say they want positive news. But at the end of the day, people don't really watch that. People watch YouTube videos on fragrances because they already own it, meaning they like it and they want to see if the guy agrees with them, or they're looking to try it out. And in both of those situations, nobody's looking to try out a perfume and wants to watch a video of a guy saying in a respectful way that they really don't like it. It's the same as if I own like 40 knots. Oh, I'm curious what he says. Nobody actually wants to see people leave negative reviews on things. Hype is what triggers engagement. So when I'm honest about a fragrance, my average view duration goes down. I get a higher percentage of dislikes. So it's almost dangerous to put down a popular perfume like Parfums de Marly. It's not just the brands, it's also viewer behavior. And when you look at this person who's not only probably has a relationship with the brand, but is also being really pushed by his viewers to produce something, and that's their job, that's what they're gonna do. That's just the landscape of the video framework online, and that's a lot of where the hype comes from. So that's my take. I'm here to just create honest videos. If you like that kind of stuff, subscribe. Anyways, I enjoy the art form of the videos. I believe that will have a change. Hopefully it does someday in the future, where people actually genuinely want that type of content. But even if not, I'm proud of the videos I make. I'm proud of the platform here, and I love you guys. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.